Welcome to the Ambitious Coach Lab, powered by 90. I'm your host, Dr. Cam Lawson. Each week, we explore the real tactics, tough conversations, and breakthrough moments that drive coaching success. Let's jump into today's episode. All right, friends. Well, we've got Amanda Barkey with us today. She is a certified EOS implementer, just a legend in the community, and just a badass woman that does all sorts of awesome things, running nonprofits, running a full house, and somehow having time to do EOS as well. So I am super excited to dive in and just learn more about her background, and just how she runs her practice. So welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thanks, Cam. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, to kind of kick things off, let's just hear a little bit about how you got into the EOS world, because you have a little bit of a unique experience, but I think somewhat similar to some others of you got introduced to it in a company. But tell us a little bit about your background, how you became an implementer.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go all the way back to the beginning. And I'm a first generation born Canadian. My grandparents were all political refugees. My parents are immigrants. I did not grow up in an entrepreneurial family. I didn't really have that modeled for me as a young child. I was growing up in an immigrant family. We're just trying to make ends meet. I met and married my husband, who I swear came out of the womb with a business plan. So we've been living an entrepreneurial life together for the last 2 decades. And It's just been the best thing ever. This is definitely the life that I've been meant to live, but it's definitely had its ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster. So neither of us graduated with an MBA. We're just greedy entrepreneurs. We throw things at the wall, see what sticks. And we moved down to the States to start our business. We own a business called Soccer Shots. And I also had 4 kids in 5 years in the startup years of our business. So just to make things a little harder on ourselves, why not?
Why not, right?
um, so yeah, we didn't know what we didn't know. We were learning from our mistakes. We were growing by our reputation. We were just really trying to figure things out, and we are going along to get along and putting out a lot of fires, pulling our hair out. I swear there was a track in the backyard where we would take turns walking laps, just trying to it was like our kind of our think tank time where we were just trying to figure out what the heck to do next. Um, and yeah, like I said, we didn't know what we didn't know. We couldn't quite put our finger on it, but we knew that there was a better and easier way to run a business. Just didn't know what it was. And then we were in Soccer Shots is a franchise. So we own 6 franchises here in Southern California, which we've owned for 15 years. 3 years ago, we expanded to Oahu, Hawaii. We own 2 franchises over there. We've owned the Miami franchise at one point. We've been doing this for a while. And so in those early years, we were in this franchise community, and the fortunate thing about being in a franchise community is you have this, board of advisors, or this this group that's doing life the same as you in different parts of the country, and you're able to bounce things off of each other and form, masterminds and that type of thing. So we were doing that kind of stuff really early on, and there was a guy who was leading that mastermind that we were a part of within our franchise community. His name's Tim O'Neill. He's actually an EOS implementer now, based out of Ohio. Salt of the earth, greatest guy.
Mhm.
And he gave us the book Traction. So that changed our life forever when he handed us that book. And we read it. My husband read it 2 times in 11 days.
Wow.
It was like that light bulb moment. Like we were just like, this is it. This is the better and easier way to run a business. So we started implementing the tools and disciplines in our business, experienced exponential growth, broke through ceilings that we never imagined that we'd break through. Gino created EOS to give entrepreneurs freedom. And that's what it did. It gave us freedom to live our life by design, to be intentional, to get real about our priorities and what we want. And yeah, I have 5 children, 3 businesses. I run a nonprofit. I love to travel. And a lot of times people ask me, how do you do it all? And I just tell them EOS. It's as simple as that. I use it in every business, in my family life, in my personal life. It has profoundly changed my life, both personally and professionally. So Um, I jumped in with both feet a few years ago, became a professional EOS implementer, and I haven't looked back. It's just been my life's most fulfilling and rewarding work. And yeah, now I'm a certified implementer, have over 100 sessions under my belt, and I'm just rocking and rolling, and I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so funny to hear people's EOS story because I feel like I've it's testable theory, but more often than not, it's somebody was in a peer group or they met with somebody and they get handed a copy of Traction. It's just so crazy to me how influential that book is, and
Yeah.
then it opens up the door and you start to realize, man, there is a better way, or there is, light at the end of the tunnel or whatever. So it's fascinating hearing you see that. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, what led you to want to pull the trigger to be an implementer? Because that's not for everybody, right? To become a business coach and help out. Like a lot of people get that freedom and they just want to continue living in the organization. But what led you to want to pull the trigger and become an implementer?
Yeah, so at this point, all of my children were school age. In a previous life, I was a stay-at-home homeschool mom. So I was a homeschool mom of all these kiddos. And after COVID, they all went back to school full time to public school. And I didn't have a seat on the leadership team. I wasn't on the accountability chart. I'm sitting in the owner's box. And so it kind of was this time in my life that was there was a turning point, or like there it really felt like there was a new chapter, a new page being turned, right? And we I actually had kind of it was like a little bit of an intervention moment with my husband, who's my business partner and also the visionary in our business and our rock star integrator. She's like our third wheel affectionately. We're kind of like a throuple, not in a weird way, but we
I get what you.
3 of us, like, we're thick as thieves, and she's been our integrator for a decade, and so she knows us really well, and, we did so we're repentant, reformed self-implementers, and so we did kind of like our Mickey Mouse DIY version of an annual. It was like looking back, it was kind of a joke, but we did that, and it actually was on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which was yesterday, so that was it's like kind of an anniversary day for me, so the next day, which is today, this is the anniversary of the intervention,
Nice.
um she and so our integrator Nancy and Joben, my husband, visionary of our business, they we were out for brunch and we were kind of debriefing about the annual, and they were like, "Look, Amanda, like you're sitting in the owner's box. Kids are all going to school full time. You know, you what are you going to do with your life? You've got some time on your hands." And I'm not the kind of like, PTA, tennis with the girls, mimosa brunch kind of mom. Like that's not
Sure.
who I am. And so I had some business ideas kind of floating around, and I'm pretty savvy with social media, marketing, all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, maybe I go back to school and like take a course, go do that, follow that passion, or go down this road or that. Um, and then they suggested becoming an implementer, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" And so they were like, "Well, they're like a coach of the EOS tools, and you know them like the back of your hand. You love this stuff. It changed our life. You're super passionate about it. So why don't you try it out and go do that?" And like I said, I was a homeschool mom, and so I am a teacher at heart. And like within my soccer shots business, I've mentored and coached many young people throughout the years. And so I have experience in leadership development. And so it kind of just felt like, you know, the world, all of my worlds are colliding and the stars aligned. And this is like the perfect opportunity and the perfect moment for me. So that's how I jumped in with both feet. It was just kind of, it was that perfect storm or that perfect moment in time, and so, I hopped on a webinar the very next day, learned what an implementer was, said, "Hell yeah," jumped in with both feet, and I was at boot camp 17 days later,
Wow.
and yeah, I was total fish out of
Just
water,
going for it.
totally, I just jumped right in and went for it, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, so that's how it all came around.
How cool. So now hundreds over 100 sessions in, like, what's next? Like, what does it look like going forward? Like, what are some of the growth goals you have for your practice going into, I know we're recording this at the beginning of 2025, but, like, what does it look like this year for you and into the next?
Well, 500 sessions, 1,000 sessions, like, I'm in it for the long haul. So I'm just, one of the things that I love the most about EOS, the EOS community, EOS worldwide, the implementer community is this growth mindset and
Mhm.
that we've never arrived. We're on this path to mastery. And that has been one of the greatest joys for me on this journey is being surrounded by those type of people and having those type of people push me and really hold my feet to the fire. And I think that I've learned and accomplished more in the last 3 years than I have in the last 30 years. So, I'm just gonna keep doing that. It's serving me well, and, yeah, and I just every year, I just have my capacity grows and my goals grow and my practice grows, and I love living my EOS life. Like, I came into this gig living my EOS life, and for,
Mm.
your listeners who don't know what that is, it's doing what you love with people you love, making a huge impact, being compensated appropriately with time for other passions. And if I can say every single day that I'm living a 5 out of 5 EOS life, I'm golden, right? And so I'm gonna keep doing that. And part of that, a big part of that is serving my clients and working with people who are also striving to live that EOS life. And it's so fun and it's so rewarding, so fulfilling. And so I just hope that I keep getting more and more opportunities to do that more and more.
That community comes up so much, I
Mhm.
mean, not even just guests that I've interviewed on this show that are implementers, but just talking to quite a few. I mean, that community aspect is such a critical part because you have that. I love the way you put it, that growth mindset where you
Mhm.
have people that are surrounded by you that are peers that have the same goals and mindsets and are what I would call ambitious
Right?
and that are going after things that they've set out to do, and then you have that support structure around you, and not just from, hey, I'm dealing with this issue, what do you have to say into that, because that is totally valuable, but I think it is deeper than you have that. There's something about when you've got everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction, you're just going to go further as an
Absolutely.
individual because you're part of that. And so I love that you bring that up because I think that is something to think about as a business coach that is looking into something. I mean, you can go out and do it on your own. You can absolutely do that. You may have experiences that you can go in, but there's something about a community that is very valuable.
It's very special.
But let's talk a little bit about just, I mean, you have a lot that you manage, right? I mean, you got a full house, you've got businesses, a nonprofit, and your EOS practice. Like, talk about some strategies on how you manage all of that and like how I'm sure time management is a critical part of that, but talk a little bit about just how you are able to execute on a high level with all of the responsibilities you have.
Mhm. Well, one thing that serves me and my husband and my family really well is getting really intentional about designing our life. There's an expert EOS implementer in our community that I'm dear is a dear friend of mine, and he's a mentor of mine named Scott Rusnak. He wrote a book all about getting intentional, getting really clear on what you want and designing your life, being the architect of your life, because if you don't design your life, someone else will do it for you. And so we've really leaned into that. And speaking of the beginning of the year, every year at the beginning of the year, we sit down and we create a master calendar. We get all of our priorities for the entire year onto the calendar. And that's stuff like, our kids' school performances, family vacations, conferences. My husband and I are big soccer fans, and we have seasons tickets to LAFC. So we get all the home games on the calendar. Like the stuff that's really important to us, we get on there. Those are our priorities. And then we see what we have left. What is our capacity to then work and to do the things that we need to do. Um, but getting really clear about what we want and getting those priorities on the calendar has served us really well so that we can live the life that we want and live it to the fullest, and be at our best for the people that we're showing up for. So that has been really critical for us and helps us to get more out of life because, yeah, time blocking and getting really clear and getting your priorities dialed in so that you know exactly what time you have available for people is really important. So that's one thing that we do that I think is really critical. And then beyond that, like we're using EOS tools in our family life. So we have a family VTO, we have family core values, we do family. We're on a in a 90-day world with our family, with our quarterlies and our annuals, and so we're running a pretty tight ship. Um, so I think that that helps as well.
Yeah, it's I was just at an event I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, and one of the local implementers here, Andrew Geisel, was running. And he was talking about how his family, they run, their own L10s as a
Yeah.
family and have their own personal VTO. And I guess I had thought about that. I've read EOS Life, but it just hit me like this is actually very applicable, and you can get into that 90-day world on a personal level. It was like opened my eyes to a whole new possibility of things of the way to utilize EOS and whatnot.
Right.
So but
Cool.
from your practice specifically, like, let's talk a little bit about maybe obviously from a systems or framework standpoint, you're going in and you're teaching the EOS model. But what are some of the other tools that you utilize even from a CRM, if you use that, or other like tool sets that you utilize to really manage your practice at a high level?
hmm Well, so as far as practice management, I have a rock star EA. She helps me. I hired her through Efficient Aid. Her name's Ellie. She's shout out Ellie. She's the best. And I couldn't do anything that I do without her. So she really manages all that stuff. Like she does all of my invoicing. She does my QuickBooks. She manages everything in my CRM. And so that's all I've delegated that stuff to her. And so, yeah, certainly we use tools to help us to keep everything organized. But shout out Ellie, she handles all that for me,
Yeah.
and I'm so thankful.
When did you know like, let's dialogue on that, because this is actually a fascinating concept for me. When did you pull the trigger on hiring Elliot, and what were some of the I don't wanna say warning signs, but, like, what that's just where my brain goes, but, like, what led you to go down that route where it was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to hire somebody?" Like, talk through
Yeah.
your thought process there.
I think I always keep my ear to the ground, and I don't I'm a big fan of, standing on the shoulders of giants and, like, let's not reinvent the wheel here. So, I was listening to a lot of implementers who knew a thing or two, and taking their advice and taking it to heart. And so, I got the advice from a handful of implementers that once my practice grew to about 5 clients, that's the time to start thinking about getting someone to come in to help you at some level, whether it's in-person assistant, an executive assistant that's virtual or remote or whatever. Figure that out, but get the help that you need. Start thinking at that point. Like once you get to 10 clients, it's too late. You know,
Mm.
so because there is also you have to think there's an onboarding process. There's it took us about 6 months to really get comfortable with each other and to understand each other's needs and points of view and learn how to communicate best with each other and all that stuff. So, so I started thinking about that around that point in time when my practice grew to 5, and then I brought her on pretty quickly. I didn't hesitate. I am a high fact finder, but I'm married to a 10 quick start, so I feel like that sometimes influences my decision making and my ability to just, go with something and take a risk. And so, it felt like the right time for me, and I just went by what other people were sort of saying, like, was an industry standard or a recommendation. And then when I did get to 10 clients, we, were on the same page. We were familiar with each other, and my practice was growing, and then I was able to increase her scope of work. And so we've grown together as my practice has grown. So I would say, like, sooner rather than later is probably the time. Thankfully and fortunately, I didn't wait until it was, like, too late or till there were fires to put out or, I was encountering bumps in the road. So
That's really I feel like really sound advice because I could understand when you get to a certain point, I think it's easy to 5, 10. That's just easy, we can wrap our brains around that, but I think that does make sense. I mean, when you get to ten clients, I mean, not that that's necessarily full load, but I mean, that's a lot, like, there's a lot of moving parts at that
right.
point. And then trying to take time off to be able to get somebody. I mean, I think you said 6 months before you really got into, like, kinda understanding one another. So, I mean, there's a 6-month window, so you definitely wanna do that when you have a little bit more capacity. So
Yes.
that's really, really sound advice. What talk a little like, let's talk a little bit about just striking the balance of and you may utilize Ellie in this a little bit, but kind of managing your current client load and then the business development motion. Those are some of the core competencies of what we
Mhm.
believe business development is absolutely something you have to get good at as a business coach. But talk a little bit about how you balance that time to make sure you're taking care of your clients, but also onboarding and getting new ones.
Yeah. I kind of, I know every implementer is different, our capacity is different, everyone's 100% looks different, right? So for me, it took a lot of like feeling it out. My first year, my rookie year, I think like I didn't know what I didn't know and I was like, let's just feel this out how does this feel, right? Like when I really took stock and I think this is something that people miss, and not just as an EOS implementer, as a business coach, but like just in any industry, in any job, or in any position you have, really taking time, and we call them clarity breaks, but stepping away from your day to day and taking stock in how things feel, right? And I looked at it like how did last week feel to me, right? Like I had 2 sessions. How did that feel? Or how did it feel 2 weeks ago when I had 5 session days in a row? Or how did that feel when I had no session days, right? Like I'm trying to see over the course of a quarter, of a month, of a week, of a day, like kind of distilling it. And it's funny because that's what we do with EOS, right? We distill that vision. And I kind of took the same approach with my time, my capacity, my life, and really took stock in how I felt. Where was my energy? What did I have capacity for outside of my work? Um, where was I able to show up for people and for myself, and where was I able to inject some self care time? All of that. And so for me, I look at my life and I'm like, okay, I really like to use Mondays as a biz dev day, right? Like to do all my biz dev development, my business development on one day, stack my calls, get that all out of the way on Monday so I know what I need to work on for the rest of the week. I like to do sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are the days that I'm like on fire. And then Wednesday, I like to have a buffer day and I like to do mom stuff. I want to take my kids to the dentist or run around and do returns and be at their like school performances or what have you. And then Friday, I like to have a buffer day or do 90s. So I do a little bit more business development. Usually people are happier on Fridays. It's almost the weekend. And so someone once told me there's like a psychological element there where people will say yes to 90s more on Fridays. I don't know if that's true. But that's kind of like, that's how I like to structure my week. And that feels really good to me. Like once I get to the weekend, I'm feeling grounded and balanced and accomplished and productive and efficient and effective. And so that's I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. No, that's great. And on the business development side of things, because you alluded to it earlier,
Mhm,
where you have some passion for the social media, and I think you're killing it in the social media game. I mean, if you want a good follower, follow Amanda on LinkedIn and Instagram. I think you have too, and some of the others. Um, but talk a little bit about because there are different business development. I'm just calling them levers, right? Where
mhm.
you have different things, whether it's events or webinars or social media, like, what is your combination or your secret sauce, if you wanna share that? Like, can you talk a little bit about what you found that works and kinda leaning into that?
Yeah, I kinda do a little bit of everything. Like, I love doing talks. So I probably do on average a talk every month. So whether I'm hosting it, co-hosting it, showing up and providing content. So I'm doing those types of events or workshops pretty regularly. I'm also a EO sponsor for EO Orange County and EO Inland Empire, and I'm going to those events and networking and talking with other entrepreneurs, helping them, leaning into our core values. One of our core values is help first.
Mm,
And so, I think that a big component for me of my business development is really just showing up and helping people, genuinely helping them without expecting anything in return. That really goes a long way. And uh, an implementer in my early days told me, you know what, Amanda, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so I always remind myself of that as I'm showing up for people. Um, and I do genuinely care about people, and I'm rooting for them, and I'm showing up for them without expecting anything in return. Obviously, you hope that something comes around, and I think that's just how life is. Like, if you put good out into the world, it comes back to you. And so, I kinda look at this like I'm a farmer, right? And so you can't go out into your field and just scatter
mm.
corn all over the ground and then come out the next day with a boiling pot of water expecting to eat corn on the cob. That's not how it works, right? So you're planting seeds, and you do that in the form of showing up and helping people, and then later on down the road it bears fruit. And that might not always look like how you expect either, right? I've had a lot of really interesting opportunities and surprises that have popped up because of connections or things that I've done or have experienced or come across in the planting stage of the game. So things do come around, and especially if you have the right intention and the right heart, then if you're planting those seeds and you're doing it with the right motivation, then it will bear fruit eventually. So just gotta trust the process and stick with it and keep going one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was having a conversation with, Tyler Smith, I don't know,
Mhm.
but he and I were talking, and at the end of the day, there's not really a magic bean, if you will, for business development. It's getting out there, like you said,
Yeah.
getting out there, showing up, and leading with that. How can I help you? What can I do to make your business just a little bit better? And then I think there is that aspect of reciprocation where
Yeah.
it's almost like people feel, "Oh, man, you helped me out,
Of course.
let me come back to you for wisdom," or whether they feel like they not that they owe you something, but there is something about, like, "Man, I wanna make sure I take care of you because you took care of me," that kinda
Mhm.
thing. So, there's something to be said about just the discipline of getting out there on a regular basis, whether that's through LinkedIn, whether that's through events, whether that's through peer
Mhm.
group, whatever it is, getting that flywheel going, and pretty soon it's running on its own. So,
Yep.
do you utilize any kind of, I'm gonna call them trusted partner networks or just strategic partnerships that you have with whether that's, agencies or financial, I mean, other that kind of play in the same lane, but not quite doing the same work that you do? Do you play into any of that where you have almost referral partners?
For sure. Yep. I mean, you guys for sure. 90 has been a huge, a partner of mine that we've been able to come together and in mutually beneficial areas, like help each other. And I just hosted an event in Hawaii last month, the month before. Hosted one in November, actually, one in September. So it's been a few months, but 90 sponsored, and provided swag bags and all kinds of cool stuff. And
There we go.
yeah, and so that's been great to give 90 exposure in a market that they're not necessarily having any exposure in or much exposure, and then for myself as well to be able to provide that as a value add at the event that I was hosting for my guests. Those types of things are always really fun, especially I see a lot of these, what we'll call them, strategic partners, like, but they're friends, my
Right.
friends. I see you all at things like the EOS conference or different summits or and events and conventions that we're at. And so it's been really exciting to form those friendships and those relationships with like-minded individuals of organizations that serve the same target market type of client that I do. Organizations like 90, Trainual, Titus, the list goes on. And I've met some really lovely people and people like you said earlier, like that are rowing in the same direction, right? Like we have very similar missions and we're serving similar clientele. And so to be able to like rise together is a really beautiful thing, and it's one of the greatest joys of this work that I get to do. I just it's all about the people, like, whether I'm meeting prospective clients, I'm serving my current clients, I'm working with strategic partners, or, I'm coming together with, colleagues, with other implementers and, learning and growing together, like, it's just that's what it's all about, is the people.
Yeah, it makes work more fun when you
Mhm.
have people that, like you said, like, are rowing in the same direction or just have that same common goal, right? We're coming in, we wanna make businesses better.
Yeah,
When you have that mindset, it makes things so much more fun, and then you can find that, call it the stack of partners or whatever that you have that are gonna it's a mutually beneficial sometimes I don't
absolutely.
like that term, but, like, I think in this sense, it does make sense where it's just we all have the same common goal and let's work towards that for the end goal of being able to help the business become better, you know?
Yeah,
And
we're
so
all stronger together.
on I'm fascinated on one thing, specifically, the dynamic of just the work-life balance with partnering in a company where you're working with your husband, and then also as an implementer, like, talk through that dynamic because there may be other coaches that are doing that. I even have a little consulting thing with my dad, and so
Right.
there's, just there's unique benefits and just sometimes challenges with those things. Can you talk a little bit about how you are strategic and how you balance that?
Yeah, well, I have to say right off the bat, it's not for everyone. So, um, I think, like, my husband and I don't know any different. We've been partners together in everything right from the jump. From day 1, from the day we met, we've been partners in life, in business, in love, in family, in all of it. So, we obviously work really well together. We're great partners, and, it works for us. I think that we recognize or see immature versions of ourselves in the early years of partnering in all of these things, and now a more mature version. And so it's definitely easier now that we have more self-awareness. We've done a lot of work, a lot of inner work. I mean, I have a notes app on my phone, a page of every single, you ask me whatever assessment, I have my answer. I know who I am. And I know who my partner is. We've done all of these assessments and we talk about our results. We talk about, our communication styles, our personalities, the way that we're wired, how we operate. We really understand each other. And so I think that that understanding, that awareness has really served us well. Like in the early years when we didn't know as much about each other, there was a lot more miscommunication, a lot more confusion, a lot more chaos. So, um, awareness, self-awareness, know thyself to lead thyself, right? And then when you're with a partner, whether it's in business or in marriage or whatever, it serves you well to know the other person and to know yourself and to be able um, to adjust accordingly. And so I think assessments have been like a key thing for us in being able to work together well. And then also we've learned a lot about family business. It can be a really tricky thing. And in the experiences that I've gone through in my own life, it's been able to serve me to know how to better serve my family business clients. So that experience has been invaluable. There's an implementer in the community named Sarah B. Stern. She's kind of the family business guru. And she taught us about the three table model, comes from Harvard, and it's about family business and just having a seat at, the three different tables, and really being clear about where you sit and what your accountabilities are and expectations, keeping those clear. That's actually really been helpful for us in having early conversations with our children. They're still preteens and teenagers, but at some point we're thinking, one or some or all will end up in one or some or all of our businesses. And so we are having those conversations with them, and helping them to understand themselves and each other and where they fit.
Yeah, it goes into, like, the accountability chart in the EOS, understanding your roles and responsibilities within whether you're playing a small role or a really, really big role, so
Yeah.
and then I
Well,
love that you Oh, go ahead.
yeah, Brené Brown says clear is kind, and
Mhm.
I have that rolling around in the back of my head, right? And so all of this is designed to provide clarity, and,
Yes.
and I think clear is kind, so, we just are always striving for that.
And I love the aspect even from a outside of a family business type relationships, but the assessments, I think that is such a beneficial thing
Mhm.
regardless of whether you're working with your significant other or another family member, but just understanding yourself because I mean, even at 90, we take the Colby, we do a form of the Myers-Briggs, even a form of
Yeah.
Enneagram. We've done predictive index. I've done work, work all these different tests, and it has helped me understand my tendencies. Each one of them provides a unique lens at looking at yourself, and I think that's such a valuable thing as a business coach because what that's gonna do is that's gonna allow you to understand how you receive and give information in the
Mhm.
session room in your business development. You can kinda understand what you need to tap into. So, I mean, are there specific tests? I mean, it sounds like you've done all of them, but are there specific ones that you feel like have helped you as a business coach specifically?
Yeah, so obviously with, EOS Worldwide, we teach Colby. That's like the
Right.
assessment that's our go-to. That really has helped me understand, my hardwiring, like, my cognitive abilities. But there's a really great assessment. I'm trying to see if I have the book at my fingertips, but I think someone may have taken it, borrowed it from my library, but there's this organization called Giant Worldwide, and there is an assessment called the 5 Voices, and it is there's the Myers-Briggs, I've done that, that's a
Yep.
great assessment, but 5 Voices takes all of those letter combinations and essentially breaks those down into 5 voices. So there's the pioneer, the connector, the guardian, the nurturer, and the creative, and so you will fall into one of those categories, and it's about communication, and so understanding how those different types of people best receive communication and how they will give you communication. And so understanding on a team the voice order, who has the strongest voice, who has the quietest voice, allowing people to talk um, in a different order than maybe where they're sitting at the table because of their voice order. Or even like understanding the intention behind something. For instance, like a guardian might sound like a devil's advocate, but they're really coming from a place of trying to protect. They'll protect like the company or the organization's money like it's their own, right? And so they're going to question spending in a way that some people might feel like is like a little too much, but really they're just doing it because of how they're wired. And so it's interesting understanding those different personalities and their voices and how to better communicate with each other where the intent is behind what they're saying or what they're doing. And so that's helped us a lot, um, not just for me in my business. We've used it in my own business, but in my relationship with my husband, in and out of our business, and then also in the session room with my clients. Understanding how the team is engaging with each other because of their communication style.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on. I always like to ask guests 2 questions. It's been around for a little while, you know it's coming. But first one is if you had to go back and with all the knowledge and experiences that you've gained over 100 plus sessions of being an implementer, what advice would you give rookie Amanda as you're first starting out, green as could be? What would you tell yourself?
I think I touched on it earlier, but just trust the process.
Mm.
I have been fortunate to become very good friends with a lot of implementers in the community, and I've gotten a lot of really great sound advice, and everybody has, I take everybody has their own experience. They've been on their own journey, right? And so they have their own perspective. Fortunately, within the EOS worldwide community, we're very aligned, and we're all, we're teaching the same tools. We're coming from the same place. We have the same objectives, but we all have our own lived experience. And so I'm taking bits and pieces from the wealth of knowledge that I have access to, these world class coaches. But one common thread has been trust the process. Just keep your head to the ground, keep doing the work, just keep going, and don't give up and trust the process, and it'll come out in the wash, right? And I've watched that happen. Like, everything they say is going to happen as long as I've stuck to what I'm supposed to be doing, it happens. And so, it's been proven, but trust the process. I think I would just and I've reminded myself that throughout the journey, but if I could go back and just tell myself, like, "No, really, just trust the process. It's all gonna work out." I would have saved a lot of heartache and anxiety, sleepless nights, etcetera.
Hindsight is 2020, they say.
Beautiful thing. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
No, that's good. I think there's so many. I mean, it can be we almost call it the first stage when you're first is survival.
Mhm.
You're just trying to get those first couple clients and make like, is this decision the right decision? And so
Right.
I think there's something to be said about that. Just trust the process, put the work in, get into the motions of getting into doing the right things and doing
Mhm.
the right things for practice management and getting into the motions of business development and trust that those things will start and that flywheel will kick in eventually. And I
Yeah.
think you're a walking testament to the success that happens as you trust the process. So, and then the second question I always like to ask is, what's a lesson you're in the middle of learning right now? You can be as open and vulnerable as you want, but I always like to just get on a more personal level.
Yeah, I think, like, right now you caught me at a really interesting time, because I would say the last 6 months of my life have been the hardest 6 months of
Mm,
my adult life. I have been knocked down, in every regard. I've been completely depleted emotionally, mentally, and physically. I broke my kneecap in half and had to recover from that. My dog escaped from our backyard, unfortunately got hit by a car and
aw.
unexpectedly died. I lost half my clients for a myriad of reasons.
Mm,
Um, we had our office broken into and everything was stolen, and then my
mm,
employees didn't wanna come back to work, they didn't feel safe, and I had to go through that with them and navigate that, and so just a lot of, struggle. Like, there are a lot of things happening to me, like, and I think that when there are things that are outside of our control that are happening to us, it can get really uh, it's really hard to stay on track with your plan, or with what you've envisioned, or things don't play out necessarily. What do they say? There's a saying, like, we make plans and God laughs, right? Like,
yep.
so I've experienced that to the utmost degree over the last 6 months, and so I think what I'm learning, is just to hold my expectation of an outcome very loosely, you know? Go all in, put all your effort towards something, show up, keep going, but be very, like, open to what the possibility of an outcome could be. It might turn out differently than you thought or imagined, but that's okay. Like, it's gonna be okay in one way or another. Like, I really believe that things aren't just happening to us, they're happening for us,
Mm,
and so I've been striving to see that in the things that have been happening to me over the past 6 months, that have honestly been very depleting, right? Like, it's depleted my energy and my
mm,
capacity, and, my ability to show up in the way that I would like to, but I keep showing up, and I'm seeing now, like you said, hindsight is a beautiful thing, and I'm seeing now the purpose in that pain, So that's what I'm going through right now. That's the lesson that I'm learning. And I would just encourage anyone who's going through anything challenging um, to just really keep going, stick with it, and try to see it, try to look at that stuff as something that's happening or some things that are happening for you and not just to you. Because when you can maintain that perspective, then you can come out of it on the other side stronger, better, more resilient. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you being vulnerable, and I'm sorry about all those things, but I think your, call it testimony, whatever, is inspiring
thank you.
to see you find that. I was talking to another guest, and he said a mentor. I think it was a mentor of his had told, be indifferent to the outcome.
Yeah,
And I love that because that's exactly what you're saying. It's making your plans, going after that, putting your heart and soul into it, but then understanding that what happens, happens. And
yeah,
so I think when you have that, not that it makes things easier, but it gives you just a little bit less of a, hey, whatever happens is what's meant to happen. And
right. I got a
somehow,
Yeah, I got a tattoo recently and, it says, "I'm greater than my highs and lows." And so keeping that perspective, not just in the hard times or when bad things are happening to you or perceived bad things,
yeah,
but even when, you're at the top of the mountain or you feel like you're at the top of the mountain, really maintaining that perspective because, we're greater than than our highs and our lows.
yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
I've got the same one right here. I don't know if you can see it, but
Oh, cool. Yeah, we're
yeah, yeah,
tattoo
yeah,
buddies.
there you go.
Mm.
It's something, it's an easy conversation starter. Even my 4-year-old son, he'll come up and be like, what does that mean?" And
Mhm.
you just get to tell, like, God is greater than my ups and downs or mountains and valleys, whatever you wanna call it. But it's just that reminder that we're not the summation of whatever we're going through. It's so much greater than that. So I
Absolutely.
I appreciate you sharing that and being open, and I appreciate this conversation. If people want to get in touch with you, maybe they want to learn more about your practice and some of the things you've talked about today, or maybe they are a client, what's the best place to get in touch with you?
Sure, and absolutely no problem. I'm an open book, so anytime that you wanna hear, open and honest, I'm your girl. And with that being said, I'm all over the place. I'm an open book, and I'm open and honest everywhere. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I have a microsite, I have a family website. You can find me, just put it in the Googler or wherever you search for things, Amanda Barkey EOS, and I'm out there. My phone number is out there, my email address is out there, but amanda.barkey at eosworldwide.com. Reach out to me there. And that is what Ellie manages. And you'll for sure get an answer because she's on top of things. But yeah, I'm all over the place. Anyone can find me anywhere. Just Google Amanda Barkey at and EOS and you'll find me.
I love it. Yes. And if you aren't following, be sure to follow on all the platforms because Amanda's cranking out some awesome content. So,
Thank you.
well, thank you again for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your experiences. I know I have
Anytime.
benefited from it. I appreciate you, and have loved seeing the success you've had, and I'm excited to see the success you'll continue to have. So, and if you're
Thank
an ambitious coach like Amanda and you want to learn more, feel free to reach out. Email is cam@90.io. That's the full word 90.io. Would love to be able to talk with you about some of the things Amanda's talked about, how she's been intentional about building her practice, or some of the other things. If you're struggling with business development, that is what we do at 90. We help coaches like Amanda build their practice and hopefully become more ambitious coaches because we believe a healthy business coaching ecosystem leads to a healthy business ecosystem. So I appreciate Amanda again, and we will link out to some of the things that she's referenced, some of the books she's mentioned in the show notes, and we'll also link out some of the contact info for Amanda as well. So thanks for listening. Take care. That's it for today's episode of the Ambitious Coach Lab. My hope is that something here helps you sharpen your craft and keep building a coaching practice you're proud of. Before we wrap, a quick thank you to our sponsor, 90. If you're coaching leadership teams, having your clients run their entire world in 90 truly elevates your work. Vision, rocks, scorecards, issues, it all lives in one centralized place. The clarity keeps your clients aligned between sessions and makes every conversation you have with them more focused and more impactful. I've used 90 with over 500 leadership teams, and I can tell you it makes great companies better and great coaches even more effective. Feel free to use promo code AC20 for 20% off. Again, that's AC20 for 20% off. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm Cam, cheering you on as you grow your ambitious coaching practice. We'll see you next time.